Okay, hello, folks, and welcome to our interview with Covington East Ward Post 1 City Council member Susie Keck. Susie is running for reelection this November in the city of Covington. And so, as with the other candidates running this fall, we've asked Susie to spend a few minutes with us and answer some questions about things that matter to us at Sustainable Newton. But before we do that, I would just want to give you a few minutes, Susie, if you just want to introduce yourself and talk about what you believe you would bring to the council if reelected.
Okay. Well, you introduced me. I am serving currently as the council person, and I'm up for reelection. Tell you a little bit about me personally. If you don't know me, I had a 40-year career in floor covering. And it's interesting to be part of sustainability with City of Covington and Sustainable Newton, because floor covering was on the forefront of trying to change things with recycled content and everything. And my very first home was a solar home in 1978, built out in Alpharetta. Gene Cates from Georgia Tech built about 10 solar homes, and that was our first home. But I want to tell you about, I've been married to John Keck for 48 years. He currently serves on the Newton Trails Board, and he's president of the Covington Conyers Cycling Club, C4, and they collect bikes throughout the year to give away at Christmas. I have 7 grandchildren, and climate change is a big concern to me. So I welcome this interview so you can learn more about me.
Okay, great. And that's a good introduction to our first question, which really was, again, that, scientists attribute the increasing frequency of extreme weather events that we're seeing, wildfires, floods, heat waves, hurricanes. And so they attribute some of this to, human carbon emissions and the climate change effects there. So to what extent are you personally concerned about what we're seeing today and what risk you think we might face in the future?
Well, I'm very concerned. In my lifetime, I'm 66 years old. I have seen evidence of climate change. When we lived in North Carolina 17 years ago, I've been in Covington for 17 years, we had some oceanfront property, and hurricanes were a big concern. They're even bigger today. I mean, statistics show we're getting more and more larger and larger storms. And here in Covington, we suffered damage just a few years ago with Irma. Sorry, I should turn that off. And
turn that off.
And, so I know the damage hurricanes can cause. I just recently traveled to Alaska, and I actually spoke with people that have lived there all their life. And while looking at glaciers, they talk about how much larger the glacier was that we were looking at. And then I went into Oregon, and they had wildfires the smoke was affecting everything. So we know we're having these catastrophes, and data is showing us it's being caused by climate change and our, own human carbon emissions.
Okay. And so in that sense, then what role do you believe city governments should play in responding to mitigating and avoiding impacts of climate change?
Well, it's a fine balance, trying to keep the budget in line, but the governments, both local, state, and federal governments, have got to get involved. We're running out of time with some of these issues. But what I'm concerned with is our small town of Covington. What can we do? And there's things we can do. And as you know, I serve with you on the Sustainability Committee. And you give us an education of things that we can do, like electric vehicles. We'll talk about that in a little bit too, but LED lighting, solar initiatives. There's lots of things a local government can do.
As you know, Sustainablevington has adopted the Drawdown Georgia Climate Action Framework to kind of guide and help us organize our efforts here locally. And this was developed by a team of researchers and scientists from the major universities, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Emory, and so forth. And so they have 20 carbon reduction solutions, in electricity, transportation, building materials, food and agriculture, and land sinks. And so and like all the other candidates that were interviewing, we had made sure everybody had access to that list. But when you look at those solutions, which ones do you believe the city of Covington is best positioned to act on, and what steps would you propose to support or increase those in our community?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's some low-hanging fruit, and we're after that currently. When we talk about building materials, we have just committed to spend $40,000 with Snyder Electric, and they have gone through all of our facilities and processes and are making recommendations to us currently on those things that we can do. And, examples are LED lighting. We have a plan, and as we replace those bulbs, we are doing LED bulbs. We have old buildings. So there's a lot of retrofit that needs to be done, whether it's just sealing doors or adding insulation, just improving what we have. And if we're fortunate enough to build something new, then we've got to build with materials that are sustainable. Recycling, waste management. We are trying to recycle, as you know, and the world of recycling changes every day. Without glass recycling, at a scale that we can afford, we're no longer able to recycle glass, but the people are able to. So as a government, I think we need to educate the people at options that we do have, not to throw it in the landfill. Building materials, I think, is a great thing we can do. I think recycling and waste management, we can do a much better job. Transportation. The county is currently doing a survey for mass transportation. We need it terribly. It's a very large nut. It's a very expensive thing to do. But I'm on board. I won't have a lot to do with it except for my voice, and we need everybody's voice. And if we're lucky enough to get mass transportation, it needs to be using a fuel that is, good for our environment. Energy efficient trucks. There's not many out there yet, but as they come out, we need to be the first to purchase them. Electric vehicles. We have committed to buying 3 electric vehicles. We need to commit to buy more. John and I are personally in the market for a new vehicle, and we went out, looked at everything that we're interested in, and decided to wait. We're going to wait on electric vehicles, and I hope that everybody will, because that is where we're going to be. And hopefully, in my lifetime, I'll look at an electric fleet with the city. Alternative mobility. As I said, John is president of the bike club. That currently is our alternative mobility. And the trails are awesome for that. And I'm trying to get bike lanes painted on the roads. My husband has gotten the bike signs put all over the place, share the road, and golf carts. If you see me in Covington, more than likely I'm in a golf cart. We have 2. And we play golf with one and we ride around in the other. So right now we're reducing our footprint, but the city, those are initiatives. We are a golf cart city. We need to promote that more. We're doing trails, and we need to go for electric vehicles. Those are the easiest things, I would say, for us to tackle. And I've learned you can't bite off more than you can chew. And education is a key to doing any of these things.
Okay, great. So just to dive in a little bit, so the city is an electric service provider, which means basically we operate a utility company, and That requires council members to be both representatives of the citizenry, but also, really a board of that utility. So, represent the business interests of the utility. So there's a few policy questions that we want to touch on, and they're not always simple questions, but they are issues, as you know, that you face in a council's role. And so what we're looking for is not so much the grasp of the technical and the financial implications, but just how you approach decision making in this context. So one of the first of those would be a lot of the climate solutions that you've talked about and that we see when we look at a drawdown Georgia type of framework are things like rooftop solar, cogeneration, energy efficiency improvements, and these reduce household and business demand for electricity. So meanwhile, our city does sell electricity, and we do rely on that revenue to fund some city services. So how do we balance those interests to achieve meaningful carbon reductions, or can we?
There's long-term solutions and there's short-term solutions. Let's talk about the long-term solutions first. The long-term solution is to become less dependent on the revenue from electricity. How do we do that? We grow our grid. And by that, I mean, we get larger customers using our power. If we can grow our grid, we're less dependent on that electric revenue for everyone. So there's more opportunity for people to use solar and it not cost them more, if you know what I mean. So today, for us to reduce electric, that money would have to go into property taxes. And that's never going to be approved by a politician. So how are we going to move toward solar, move toward cogeneration, move toward other methods? We have to reduce our reliance by growing our grid, smart growth, bringing in developments that use solar, bringing in developments that use less electricity. I wrote some notes here, and I just want to make sure I hit it. I do think that we can balance trying to get away from our, power footprint. And, Plant Vogel, which, we're going to be paying for, that's better than some methods like coal. And, I don't know how exactly we can do everything we need to do, but I'm learning from Sustainablevington and others. And I'm willing to look at anything, but I have to be careful. I've got to balance that with the cost involved.
So you mentioned in your comments, you mentioned solar. So the city council recently voted to purchase up to 15 megawatts of solar generated electricity through our main provider, Municipal Electric Association of Georgia, or MEAG. And so do you believe the city can and should take additional steps to purchase or generate more power from renewable sources?
Well, we asked for 15, we only got 12.8, but it's a baby step. Yes, I think, I think we're going to see a lot of changes on this front, and it's going to come through education. And, here in my neighborhood, I live in Covington Place, and we have HOA and we have bylaws, and it says you can't put solar on a house. Well, that's going to change. It may not change this year, but more and more people are learning. It's not just about saving money. It's about our children and our grandchildren's future. And as we have more demand for it, it'll make change. And I know you're trying to increase demand, and that's what we need. We squeaky wheel gets oiled.
And so, in bringing that up, so, in the case of the MEAG project that we participated in, that's a utility scale solar. And Georgia actually is one of the top 10 states in the nation for utility scale solar. At the same time, we lag all of our neighbors, or most all of our neighbors, in terms of rooftop solar adoption. And you mentioned things like HOAs that have to be worked through, but industry experts often point to state and local policies in Georgia as barriers to that rooftop solar growth. And so I wanted to touch on just a few of some are current policies in place, and how do we work with those, and others are ideas we might consider in the future policy-wise. But one of those that we've focused on and worked on the last few years is the standby capacity fee, the monthly charge that a customer it could be wind, solar, whatever, but when a resident's business generates electricity at their site, they pay a fixed fee on top of that, for reasons that you can get into. But the council did work with Sustainablevington in 2019 to reduce their fee, your fee, and Oxford eliminated theirs. So just interested in your thoughts on if there's more we can do there or how we go about that.
I'm going to go back to we need more people asking for it. Supply and demand. The more people that come to us and demand that we do something about that fee, more people are going to listen. It's really hard, Maurice, because right now we don't really have many people saying, we want solar. What are you going to do about this fee? We did reduce it. When you say Oxford, it went to 0. How many people are in Oxford? Mm-hmm. And how many people are in Covington? That's a big difference as far as revenue. Everything's not about money, but in government, it's all about balancing your expenses, with what you take in. So I would very much encourage anyone who wants solar, is considering solar, to contact me or any of their representatives so we can start hearing from the public and not just Sustainablevington that this is something that needs to be done.
Okay, so another policy area that has gotten some focus in the state in the last couple of years is the idea of net metering. And just for the folks watching this, basically, like most utilities in Georgia, Covington, if a customer puts a solar system on their house and hey, I generated more electricity today than I could use, it's going to go back in the grid. And so there's metering in place to see that I get credit for that. Under our current rate structure, and the rate structure in most situations, the customer, me, when I use electricity from the city, I pay a retail rate, let's say 12 cents, it varies. And when I sell it back, I get a wholesale rate, like 3 cents. So, and this has been fairly typical in Georgia. Some states have laws making it be net. You get the same either way. So Georgia Power began a pilot program for net metering a couple of years ago for a limited customer base. And in that situation, the rate's the same, flowing both ways. It certainly, obviously, as you can imagine, alters the payback and improves the return on investment for solar. So what are your thoughts on how we might explore that in Covington and maybe just learn from what Georgia Power is doing and see if that makes sense here?
Yeah, well, I've got a couple of thoughts there. Georgia Power is much larger, and economy of scale comes into fact. They can afford to do the net metering. They have an initiative to put up electric vehicle charging stations all over because they know that things are changing. So they're going to have revenue coming in from those electric vehicle charging stations. So yeah, I think net metering would be great. I think it's something we need to look into. I think it's not fair to the people who have solar, but again, it's all based on demand. The more people that demand it, the more we'll look at it.
Okay. And then the third item here that falls in that same space is a time of use rate plan. So, and again, Georgia Power is the easiest example to use. There are other utilities that do this, but some of the EMCs likewise, they have rebates for rooftop solar and so forth, because part of the goal is to move demand during peak daytime off of households so that they can serve their large industrial and commercial customers who are using a lot of electricity during the day. So a time of use plan would say I pay much less for electricity in the evening when demand is not as high, but if I want to use electricity during the day, it's much higher. And some of the folks that have installed solar, even through our Solarize program, were able to take advantage of Georgia Power's time of use plan and then really enhance and quickly accelerate their payback. So just interested if how the city might go about looking into a time of use rate plan as a help to the city in terms of peak demand, but also a help to solar customers who don't need electricity during the daytime, and electric vehicle owners who are going to be charging at nighttime when you can offer them a lower price for that electricity.
Yeah, you know, I think that the initiative to go to electric vehicles is going to bring to the forefront a lot of these changes like this. I'm totally in favor of it, Maurice. Georgia Power charges more for their power than we do, believe it or not. And everybody thinks we have high utility bills, but you know, we are like right in the middle if you look at all our neighbors. They are an icon because I love Georgia Power. I've been to several meetings of things that they're doing. And I said in the beginning, it requires education. And we have to educate our officials on how to do some of these changes that will help you as a consumer of electric and help you save money, but also to help the climate. And it's all, not the climate, to help climate change. Mm-hmm. It's all, it's like a quilt. We're adding to it every day. And I'm just one little square. And when I'm gone, I hope people will say, well, yeah, you know, she was this square that made this world a better place. My grandchildren, you know, they have a square, they're up on the front, and they understand all this stuff much better than I do. But, you know, everything you talk about, I'm in favor of. It's just we have to balance it with the cost to the city. And there are ways to balance it. One of them is to reduce spending. You know, if you offset the cost of electricity to a household because they're generating solar and you pay them more money for the solar they're producing, then find a way not to spend that money somewhere else. There is fat that can be cut.
So, and you mentioned earlier, you made reference to the strides that the city has made in the last year with electric vehicles, putting the charging station, the free, no fee charging station at the Welcome Center, the plans to put additional charging stations in other locations, and the 3 vehicles, I believe, that are in the budget this year for the city, 3 electric vehicles. So just from there, I mean, where do we go from there, and how do you see the next steps that you would encourage to further electrify the city fleet?
Long-term mass transportation. You know, we've got to get on board with that. And I don't know what all's involved in that. They're just starting the survey. Whatever the city's part is in that, I'll be active in it. You know, I want our whole fleet green. But there's, you know, when it comes to public safety, you know, some of those cars, you see a police car sitting out there idling, and people say, well, why are you letting that car run? Well, they've got a computer running, the officer's sitting in there, he doesn't want to be hot. There's opportunity for electric vehicles that if we had the money, we could do it right now. So we have to put that in our plan. Every time we replace a vehicle, if it makes sense, it needs to be an electric vehicle, even if it costs more. Just like I say, we have to buy local, even if it costs more, we got to go green, even if it costs more. Balance it some other way.
So we've zoomed in, you know, on the solar questions and the EV, but I'd kind of like to back up to the bigger level as we finish here, and just, you know, in Sustainable Newton, as we try to describe what we're about, you know, we say, you know, our vision is a world where people and planet are as important as profit and where future generations matter. When you talk about a sustainable Covington, what does that mean?
Well, a sustainable Covington would be an all-green fleet, you know, and I see that within 10 years. A sustainable Newton will be live, work, play. And, you know, it's hard to get the people that have lived in Covington their entire life to want to have these more dense living spaces. But what that does for us is if you live in an apartment you can walk to your restaurant, you can walk to your grocery store. It takes vehicles off the road. And so I really want to, Covington to realize what can be gained. We can have smart growth, reduce our footprint, and retain money from the taxes that these people are paying to live here to offset the revenue needed from electric so that we can go more solar. A sustainable Newton. As we build new buildings, and we will, in the future, we're outgrowing our space. There will be so much opportunity with the building materials there to be more sustainable. Trails, just add, be part of it, make them safe, get people out on the trails. If you haven't been out on a trail in the city of Covington, you need to go, because it's so wonderful to see the people exercising out with their families. A sustainable Newton is a community, the same community that we all want, that charming town where people are sitting on front porches, or they're walking on the trails together, or they're at parks, or they live in a community where everybody is outside walking their dog or walking to the grocery store. It's sort of like we're going back to the 1800s where everybody went to the square. That's what I see in Covington, where we have little squares of communities where people are out of their cars. That's a sustainable Covington.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing that vision. Thanks for sharing some time with us and a conversation on matters that are real important to us. I'll put up on the video when we publish this, but if you would like to say now, where can people go to learn more about your candidacy and what you want to continue to do in Covington?
Okay. Well, one thing I want to finish with, Maurice, is I mentioned my 7 grandchildren because they are my pride and joy. They know more about sustainability than I will ever learn, and they're constantly teaching me. I gave one of them a little bendable straw. I thought they would just love it. They got so upset with me. They told me it would go in a turtle's nose. Don't use straws. And, they're young. I've got grandkids 9 months to 12. They're learning. People need to get out and learn about sustainability. To learn about me, go to keckforcov.com. Or give me a call, 404-998-2145. I don't have all the answers, but I promise you I will be part of the solution.
Okay, well, we'll share that information about how folks can follow up with Susie, and I'd encourage you to do that. And so thank you again so much for spending time with us and for serving and seeking to continue to serve.
Great. Well, Maurice, I can't thank you enough. As you know, I serve on the Sustainability Committee with you, and you teach us so much. I thought I knew a lot because I knew about recycled carpet. I know nothing. I'm learning more every day from you. Thank you.
We're all learning, but it's good to learn together. So again, thank you so much.